Nancy Guthrie revealed everything in the letter she left for her daughter, Savannah Guthrie. During the still pre-dawn hours of a cold February morning in 2026, Nancy sat at the simple wooden desk inside her longtime Catalina Foothills residence, a home she had treasured for decades. The burnt adobe house tucked near Campbell Avenue and Skyline Drive in Tucson, Arizona, had served as her sanctuary through both happiness and heartbreak. At 84 years old, her hands trembled faintly as she lifted her pen, yet the ink moved across the page in calm, intentional strokes. This was not a routine note. It was a confession. A deeply personal unveiling of emotions she had kept guarded for most of her life. Written to her youngest daughter, Savannah, the accomplished and driven anchor of NBC's Today, Nancy's words were candid, heartfelt, and infused with the perspective of a life thoroughly lived. She began tenderly addressing her daughter with love and admitting that she had carried so much in silence, smiling through life storms and standing strong for everyone else. But now, as time felt shorter and shadows seemed longer, she felt compelled to admit the truth. She had never been as invincible as she appeared. The letter was discovered days later after Nancy's abrupt disappearance captured national attention. What initially began as a missing persons report on February 1st, 2026, soon escalated into a deeply troubling investigation. Her home was found in disorder, and the monitoring app connected to her pacemaker had been mysteriously disabled. The search, led by the Pima County Sheriff's Department and assisted by the FBI, quickly drew widespread media focus. Savannah made emotional appeals on social media, pleading for her mother's safe return in a video alongside her siblings Annie and Cameron. The family offered financial rewards. The community organized candlelight vigils at St. Philip's in the Hills Episcopal Church, and strangers across the country prayed for the safety of a woman widely regarded as faithful and devoted. Yet as days stretched into a week, hope began to mingle with growing fear. Nancy's delicate health, her pacemaker, high blood pressure, cardiac concerns, and dependence on daily medication made every passing hour critical. She could not walk more than 50 yards without assistance, and yet she had disappeared without explanation. Tragically, the search concluded not with reunion, but with sorrow. On February 10, 2026, authorities announced that Nancy's body had been located in a remote area outside Tucson. Investigators believe the situation involved a kidnapping attempt that had gone terribly wrong. Details were limited, but the grief was immense. Amid an outpouring of condolences, Savannah shared portions of her mother's letter on Today, her voice breaking as she read the final words. The confession revealed layers of quiet endurance, steadfast faith, and hidden burdens that had defined Nancy's life. She had not intended the note to serve as a farewell. It had been written as a private reflection, perhaps sensing the fragility of time. Yet in death, it became her enduring legacy. A glimpse into the inner world of a woman who had devoted herself entirely to family and community. Nancy Ellen Long was born on January 27, 1942 in Fort Wright, Kentucky, a small town across the Ohio River from Cincinnati. The world was in the midst of World War II, but within the modest home of her parents, William and Jane Long, life reflected simplicity and strong Midwestern values. Fort Wright's rolling hills and tight-knit neighborhoods fostered a deep sense of community. Church bells echoed on Sundays, and families gathered for shared meals and fellowship. Nancy, the eldest child, was remembered as a cherubic little girl with bright blue eyes and curly hair, features that would become a family hallmark. Her early childhood unfolded during the hopeful post-war years of the 1940s and 1950s, when America rebuilt and optimism flourished. Raised in northern Kentucky, Nancy's upbringing was rooted in Catholic faith. She attended St. Agnes Elementary School, where discipline, service, and spiritual devotion were instilled by the nuns who taught her. Education, she would later tell her children, was the gateway to possibilities they might not yet see. In 1959, she graduated from Notre Dame Academy, an all-girls Catholic high school in Park Hills known for academic rigor and moral formation. The school shaped her intellect and encouraged her love for writing and storytelling. Classmates remembered her as spirited, quick-witted, and deeply engaged in student life. Kentucky's traditions, the excitement of horse racing, the warmth of hospitality, and the resilience of its people, left a lasting impression on her. Her journey continued at the University of Kentucky, where she enrolled in the early 1960s and chose journalism as her major. She was drawn to the influence of storytelling and its power to connect communities. Nancy joined the staff of the Kentucky Kernel, eventually becoming society editor. She covered weddings, campus gatherings, and community stories with care and empathy. Former editor Jack Guthrie once praised her ability to elevate everyday events into meaningful narratives. College was also where she met Charles Errol Guthrie on a blind date at a Wildcats basketball game. Charles, a mining engineering graduate of Georgia Tech, impressed her with his quiet confidence and adventurous spirit. Though she later described it as love at first sight, she admitted she tried to appear composed. They dated steadily, dreaming of travel and family life together. Nancy graduated from the university, carrying her diploma as a testament to independence during a time when many women were expected to prioritize marriage over career. On December 28, 1963, Nancy and Charles married in Kentucky in a ceremony that reflected simplicity and elegance. Charles's engineering career soon led them to various locations, including Melbourne, Australia, where in 1971 Nancy gave birth to Savannah Guthrie. Nancy later told Savannah that when she arrived, she felt her family was complete. Their children Annie and Cameron were already part of their close-knit household. In 1973, the family relocated to Tucson, Arizona, settling into a burnt adobe home in the Catalina foothills. The desert landscape became their permanent home. Nancy devoted herself fully to motherhood, grounding her family in faith. Savannah later wrote that God felt like the sixth member of their family. Life in Tucson was filled with hikes in the Santa Catalina Mountains, neighborhood gatherings, and church involvement. Nancy volunteered at schools and community events, known for her kindness and organization. But in 1988, tragedy struck when Charles died suddenly of a heart attack while traveling for work. At 46, Nancy became a widow, raising 3 teenagers. Savannah later described it as life being turned upside down. Nancy, however, met the challenge with remarkable strength. She returned to the workforce, taking a public relations position at the University of Arizona, which enabled her daughters to attend tuition-free. Colleagues described her as poised and dependable, her journalism training serving her well in communications and media relations. Beyond work, she remained active in church life and charitable causes, mentoring younger women and supporting widows' ministries. Nancy's pride in her children was boundless. Savannah's ascent in broadcast journalism, from local news to national prominence at NBC, brought particular joy. Nancy attended weddings and celebrated the births of her grandchildren, traveling to New York despite advancing age. In her later years, she lived independently in her Tucson home, surrounded by memories. Faith continued to anchor her, even as health issues increased. High blood pressure, heart complications, and a pacemaker limited her mobility. Still, she rarely complained, facing challenges with quiet resolve. It was during this later chapter that Nancy wrote her deeply personal letter. Found in a drawer after her disappearance, it revealed truths she had rarely spoken aloud. She admitted that her outward strength had often concealed fear. After Charles's death, she had worried constantly about raising her children alone and making ends meet. She reflected on dreams of journalism she had set aside for family life, expressing no regret but wishing she had extended herself more grace. She acknowledged moments of impatience and grief she had suppressed. She confessed that, in her later years, she endured physical pain silently, not wanting to burden her busy daughter. Most tenderly, she wrote of the bond she shared with Savannah, not just as mother and daughter, but as friends who found companionship and shared resilience. She praised Savannah's kindness, noting that compassion outlasts fame. If her words were to be her last, she hoped they would reflect fairness, authenticity, and faithfulness. Nancy's death devastated her family, but her letter offered healing. Savannah later reflected publicly that her mother had taught them faith, resilience, and love, reminding everyone that even the strongest individuals carry unseen burdens. Vigils transformed into memorials as Tucson mourned a beloved figure. Nancy's legacy does not reside in headlines, but in the countless lives she touched. From her Kentucky beginnings to her Arizona sunsets, she lived with integrity and left behind a confession that ensured her truth and her love would endure.